act of interference, the U.S. President Donald Trump has confronted the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, who warned that the tariff measures seriously complicate the country's outlook. In Ecuador, the Citizens Revolution Party urges the people to exercise electoral control and report irregularities that may appear during the process. And the Red Crescent presented video evidence showing the genocidal troops committing another war crime by deliberately killing humanitarian workers in Rafah. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, has confronted the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. The data of the agency in charge of the country's monetary policy contradict the tenet of the White House. This Friday, in a new act of interference, the U.S. President ordered the Fed to lower interest rates so as not to harm the economy. But the President of the organization does not share the criteria and warns that the head of state's tariff measures seriously complicate the country's outlook. Powell assured that since the announcement, they are facing a very uncertain outlook with high risk of increased unemployment and inflation. And the losses caused by the tariffs implemented by the U.S. administration since last Tuesday amount to more than $3 trillion. These economic measures are already leaving their first consequences on the stock market, which is the space where financial assets are bought and sold. According to calculations by financial portals in the country, Wall Street, the main financial bloc in the United States, has lost $9.6 trillion since Trump's inauguration. Likewise, the main stock market indexes reported falls. This is the case of the technological Nasdaq, with a total of more than 5,000 companies, which lost 5.97%. In this context, analysts warn that Trump's tariff war poses a significant risk to global economic growth. And in response to the increase in tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump, the Indian government has promised to act. When Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in the 6th Summit of the Gulf of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation in Thailand, he proposed a 21-point action plan that addressed the various facets of cooperation among the bloc's members nations. He also explained that in order to define the course of action and the opportunities that may arise from the new U.S. tax package, he is continuing to work with all industry stakeholders and domestic exporters, while also reviewing the tariff situation with his economic team. And U.S. President Donald Trump deals a strong blow to the far-right government of Argentine President Javier Milei. The tariff war sinks the Merval index by almost 10%. The White House measure also had a significant impact on the certificates of Argentinian companies known as ADR, some of which fell by up to 15%. The most affected are Banco Superville BBVA and Macro, which fell between 15 and 13.5%. In view of the situation, the country risk indicator prepared by the firm JP Morgan shot up in the South American nation to 925 points. The Merval index, which measures the performance of Argentine shares and markets, fell up to 10 points. And after participating in the American Patriots Gala in Florida, Argentine President Javier Milei returned to Buenos Aires without a photo with his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump. The fact caused uneasiness in the government, since the meeting with the U.S. President was one of the main objectives of this trip, as it would have served as a message of strength in the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. President Milei was awarded the Lion of Liberty Award and gave a speech in which he defended the neoliberal system. The head of state also announced that Argentina will adapt its legislation to meet the requirements of the new tariff system promoted by President Trump's administration. Meanwhile, in the United States, a federal judge ruled Friday that a Maryland father who was mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador must be returned to the U.S. by Monday, April 7th. Gilmar Abrego Garcia was deported to a supermax prison on March 15th, despite a protection order granted in 2019 that should have kept him from being sent to El Salvador. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials blame an administrative error and an oversight for Abrego Garcia's deportation, but did not take action to rectify the mistake. They argued that the federal government does not have jurisdiction since Abrego Garcia is in the custody of El Salvador government and maintain that he is a danger to the community due to alleged gang ties. Abrego Garcia's lawyers have said in court documents that he has no criminal record, a finding the government has not yet contested. And U.S. President Donald Trump extended the deadline for TikTok to be sold to a non-Chinese company. The U.S. President on Friday announced a new 75-day deadline for Chinese technology company ByteDance to sell the U.S. assets of short video app TikTok to a non-Chinese buyer. Last year, lawmakers ordered the platform to be divested from China by January 19th or face a U.S. ban on national security grounds. When U.S. President Trump took office in January, one of his first decisions was to extend the deadline until April this year in order to find a solution that keeps the app functioning. The potential agreement was negotiated in a murky environment due to the president's tariff announcements, which included assurances that the purchase of TikTok would reduce the tariff applied to China. We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok. We will be right back after a short break. Welcome back. In Ecuador, the Citizens Revolution Party urged to exercise electoral control and report irregularities. The Executive Secretary of the Citizens Revolution, Andres Arauz, declared this Friday that during the presidential elections of next April 13th, voters can contribute to exercise electoral control and report irregularities. After the ruling of the Constitutional Court related to cell phones in the voting centers, voters will be able to use their devices to take pictures of the minutes, claiming that they are key to guarantee transparency. On April 13, more than 13.4 million Ecuadorians are called to the polls to elect the president in a runoff between candidates Daniel Noboa and Luisa Gonzalez. And in Panama, hundreds of workers from the National Union of Workers of Construction, Contracts and Similar Industries gathered in the capital to demand better wages and decent working conditions from the government and the sector's employers. Demonstrators denounced breaches of agreements by the employers and labor precariousness in the midst of rising cost of living. On the other hand, they demanded wage increases, respect for collective bargaining, an end to labor outsourcing, improvements in social security, and better working conditions in the construction industry. It should be noted that organizations such as the Central Union of the Americas, CSA, and the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America People's Trade Treaty, ALBA-CP, expressed their support for the struggle of Contracts.
Well, we continued with the day of protest and struggle at the national level for the regulation of Law 462. The organized workers came out of Suntrax. In front of them, we have paralyzed the industry of corruption. Yesterday, we were forceful in front of this force, and with this sacrifice, we make them understand that a strike is not done with any intention other than to delegate a nefarious law. And logically we defend the interests of the population.
In Bolivia, the mining community demands justice after the explosion registered in the middle of a confrontation between rival groups of coal miners. The miners' protest comes a day after 5 people were killed in the drone attack. Among the victims were a pregnant woman and a 1-year-old baby. According to a report by the Departmental Police Commander, Colonel Gunther Agudo, the explosion echoed through the Yani mining camp, where 2 rival mining groups were disputing control of the mine near Sorata, 150 kilometers from La Paz. For several decades, the mining cooperatives have fought for control of the minerals using attacks with stones and sticks of dynamite.
Ahora ha venido bombazo y limpiazo Now there was a bomb and a massacre, and our brothers, our comrades are dead, a baby has died. Brother, it hurts me what they have done. We want justice now.
In Brazil, feminist movements demonstrated in front of the Spanish consulate in Sao Paulo against the annulment of the conviction of the former professional Brazilian football player Daniel Alves for rape. The Socialism and Liberty Party feminist group Mandates Collective of Councilwomen and Legislature of Sao Paulo held a protest against the annulment of the conviction of the former player Daniel Alves for sexual violence, emphasizing that it is necessary that the decision be reviewed. They also raised slogans and banners in rejection of the criminal actions of the former player, condemning the inaction of the justice systems regarding the case. In this sense, they also threw red paint on the sidewalk and fake bills criticizing the Spanish court. And in Cuba, permanent commissions of the National Assembly of People's Power evaluated the fulfillment of agreements of the legislative body presided by Esteban Lasso. During the meeting, authorities analyzed the progress of exports, tourism, and food production contained in the 2025 economic plan. In this regard, the President of the National Assembly, Esteban Lasso, highlighted the importance of these partial evaluations by the permanent commissions of the legislature for the development of the island. The meeting was also propitious to systematically follow up on the country's fundamental programs. The Peruvian government declared a state of emergency in at least 14 departments of the country due to the damage caused by torrential rains. The authorities emphasized that the measure was decreed with the aim of taking immediate actions for the implementation of a timely response and necessary recovery from damages caused by the meteorological conditions affecting the country. In this sense, the National Institute of Civil Defense, together with several ministries and district and departmental municipalities, indicated their willingness in the recovery of the affected areas and the assistance to the population. It should be noted that the torrential rains have caused rivers to overflow, landslides and mudslides affecting homes and public infrastructure. Also in Peru, inhabitants of the Tumbes region denounced late actions on the part of the authorities regarding the overflowing of the Zarumilla River that affected more than 100 families in the last hours. The Zarumilla River reached a flow of 622.8 cubic meters per second, affecting a total of 127 families who were displaced from their homes due to the consequences of the phenomenon. Flooding was also recorded affecting roads and submerging residential areas. It should be noted that local authorities, together with the Army, are carrying out rescue work in the region. We now have our second and final short break. Remember, you can also visit us on our Facebook page at teleSUR English, and we're going to be right back after this very short break. Welcome back. This Saturday, the Red Crescent presented video evidence that leaves no room for doubt that genocidal troops committed another war crime by deliberately killing humanitarian workers in Rafah. The organization attached to the International Red Cross released the video found on the cell phone of a paramedic present at the site of the massacre. It shows that the vehicles were clearly identified, that the humanitarian workers were clearly identified as well, and that none of the units engaged in suspicious actions, as the Zionist commanders claimed after recognizing that they had attacked a humanitarian group. The New York Times verified the video and confirmed its veracity. The internal management of the Baptist Hospital in the Gaza Strip warned that the health services are collapsing due to the large number of people wounded by the ongoing Israeli bombardments. Health personnel reported that the number of victims is extremely high and the hospital does not have the resources to attend to the emergencies. In this regard, they rejected the closure of the border crossing since March 2nd, preventing the entry of medicines, medical equipment and support materials necessary to face the crisis. In this sense, they urge Israel to lift the blockade to alleviate the hospital situation and to stop the genocidal operation in Gaza. And the Yemeni armed forces hit several military Israeli targets and shot down a U.S. reconnaissance drone. The report comes after U.S. President Donald Trump boasted of attacking a target of Houthi forces. According to the authorities of the Arab nation, they hit a group of civilians who were carrying out religious celebrations linked to the month of Ramadan. Yemen ratifies that it will maintain the attacks that have failed to contain the genocidal Israeli alliance in the Red Sea, formed by the United States and the United Kingdom. In other news, the Russian army neutralized 85 servicemen and officers of the Ukrainian armed forces in the city of Kryvyi Rog. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that it launched a missile attack on a location where Western military units and instructors were stationed. The ministry pointed out that in addition to the soldiers killed, at least 20 vehicles were also destroyed. In its report, the Russian military said that in March, at least 5,962 foreign mercenaries were killed, among them 1,497 from Poland, 561 from Georgia, 491 from the United States, and 136 from Brazil. In Chile, the third edition of the International Book and Social Sciences Fair was inaugurated on this Friday in the Recoleta district. The event will be held from April 4th to the 13th at the municipality main square. During the first day of the event, titles such as A Virus in the Shadows, The Expansion of Organized Crime and Drug Trafficking in Chile by consultant and researcher Pablo Ceballos and Settlers in Blood and Fire by Manuel Lagos Mieres, a text that tells the story of the conquest of southern Chile in the 20th century by European immigrants. The fair will offer free admission, reaffirming its commitment to access to knowledge, and will have the participation of more than 100 authors and 50 publishing houses. And China is preparing for the 2025 HESA International Peony Cultural Tourism Festival, an event that promises to attract thousands of visitors from all over the world. The festival will be held from April 8th to the 15th in Hesse, Shandong, and will celebrate the beauty and culture of this flower, as well as its importance in tradition of the region. The festival will feature a variety of activities, including art exhibitions, cultural presentations, and live performances. Visitors will enjoy breathtaking peony gardens in full bloom and participate in workshops on Chinese ink painting techniques. This outstanding event will not only highlight the natural beauty of Hesse, but will also promote cultural and tourist exchange between different nations. We have come like this to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and other stories on our website at teleSUR English, as well as in our social medias. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.